Good people, some conservative numbers say that Kenya has over 600,000 deaf citizens. They go to school, they sit in court, they consume media, they ride matatus, just like everybody else. But every day, this very important population faces challenges that the hearing world does not even notice, if at all. And tonight, we want to understand, in this Deaf Awareness Month, we ask this really heartfelt question. Is Kenya really listening to the deaf? Are we listening to the deaf in terms of policy, in terms of healthcare, in terms of seeking justice, in our day-to-day living, in our spirits? These are the questions we want to ask. We want to put the whole system on trial. The questions are ours, and the answers, well, they belong to us as well. Karibuni sana to this very important conversation tonight. My name is Victor Muyakane, and we have a wonderful group of people with us in studio to help us break this down, to help us understand this a lot better. Remember, September, the world over, is Deaf Awareness Month. Tonight, we'll dedicate our entire time on People's Court on this very important question. Send in your feedback, send in your messages and your questions through the platforms that you know exist. 22047 is the SMS line. If you're watching us on YouTube, the chat is active. Send in your points, your questions, and we're happy to sample them live and direct. And our producers will also put up the WhatsApp number. You can send that as well. With that out of the way, shall we begin this conversation? Yes, we shall. The People's Court begins now. But we begin with introductions, and without following any particular order, allow me to introduce Mr. Vincent Odhiambo, who is a disability inclusion advocate. Karibu sana, Vincent Odhiambo. Is he with us? Brilliant. Thank you, Vincent. Karibu sana. Next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Joseph Barasa, a disability program officer at LVCT Health Organization. Karibu sana, Mr. Joseph Barasa.
Thank you.
Excellent. We can see you. Then next, I'd like to introduce Mr. Andrew Olubala, who's a community engagement lead at Signverse. Mr. Olubala, how are you? Karibu sana. Excellent. Thank you so much. Next, we have Madam Josephine Aska, who's the executive director from FedWen. Karibu sana. Brilliant. Karibu sana. Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to introduce, standing in for Madam Rhoda Kabiti of the Kenya Society for Deaf Children, we have Mr. George Gashanja. Karibu sana, who's a program services manager at that organization. Karibu. Next, we have Madam Martha Mwango, who's an officer at the Kenya Institute for Special Education. Karibu sana. Brilliant. And last but not least, we have Dr. Shailendra Inamdar, who's joining us from the MP Shah Hospital, and he is an ENT specialist of many years' experience and pedigree. Karibu sana.
Thank you.
All right. Now, joining us in the studio on this other side are the following. Without fear or favor, without any order of seniority, we have Mr. David Benedict Okoth, who is a deaf representative from the St. Joseph's TTI in Siaya County. We have Mr. Walter Juma, who is not very unfamiliar to all of you. If you've been watching TV47, you definitely have seen him. Mr. Walter Juma is joining us once again from St. Joseph's TTI, where he is a sign language interpreter. We welcome you, Walter. We are also joined by Mr. Stephen Appel, who's the deputy principal in charge of administration at the very same organization in Siaya County. We have Mary Ochieng from the very same organization. She's in charge of ICT. We have Mr. Ian Omondi Okech, who's the deputy registrar from that very institution. Thank you so much. And we have Henry Musau, who's a student. Karibu sana, Henry. We have Cynthia Kennedy, who's a nursing student. We have Victor Franklin, who's a medical student. We have Andrew Wanjala, who's a student nurse. And we should have Mr. Michael Wandera, who's a medical radiography student. Karibuni sana, all of you, and to the people at home and wherever it is you're watching us from, karibuni sana to the all-important conversation. First, I want us to go through the lived experience of what we're talking about. And I want to talk to Mr. David Benedict of Okoth from St. Joseph's. David, can you talk to us about what your biggest, or what you think is the biggest barrier you face daily that the people who can hear don't even know about? The biggest barrier you face daily that hearing people don't even think about, Mr. David. Please stand up so the people can be able to, yes. And let us have what he's saying translated with the mic. Walter, I believe Walter is somewhere here.
Thank you. My name is David, and I'm from a team which is well represented here. And there's a topic which we are talking about. And remember, we're in the thematic month of Deaf Awareness Month. Yes, we have challenges as deaf. And also we have the way how the hearing world lives. By the time I was born, I was born deaf. And what I've experienced is by visualizing things. And what are the challenges that I've received? While I was very young, during my education level, it happened that a deaf person, for example, a deaf student, I became deaf, sorry, then I was then taken to a missionary school. That is, yes. Then I went to St. Teresa. Then that is the institute that gave me this this opportunity to learn. Then I was introduced. That was in 1984. Back then in 1984, when I was very young, growing up. Then I learned at that school, at St. Teresa, but there was no sign language at that time. So we used like an AI, like lip reading, but we could not understand. This was a challenge where even during conversation, while holding a conversation with parents, it was also a challenge. Now, when it came to the year 2010, Constitution now was established as a right, and that is what we are really happy about today. Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you for that. And perhaps still with him, Mr. David, can you tell us the barriers that existed at the time when you were, like the ones you've talked about, the barriers that existed when you were doing your training, the barriers that existed when you were growing up, have those barriers changed or improved, let's say in the last 5 years or so, or have they stayed the same?
Yes, truly. We've had challenges during in education for the deaf people. For example, it is always theory at most time, and it is a challenge. So during St. Teresa, even after I did my primary level, then I went to the technical level. In the trainings, that is where now the help was coming in. Now, when even checking or seeing the deaf people, where they were improving a lot is on the practical side, such as carpentry and masonry. Now, these challenges are always there, and it comes in on the theoretical part. But how can we be in a position to help the deaf people? Is even when invited there, is the skills during the training for them to be able to learn them and improve outside when they go outside via the practicals.
I see. Thank you for that. Thank you. Now, we've got some students. Mr. David, thank you so much. Please have a seat. We've got some students here with us. We've got Victor Franklin, we've got Cynthia Kennedy, we've got Henry, and as well as Michael and Andrew Wanjala. For those of you who are medical students, I want you to talk to us about this. When you're in class or when you're doing the practical training in the hospital, what challenges have you seen deaf students face? Let's start with you, Wanjala. Please stand up.
My name is Andrew Wanjala. So about the challenges that the deaf students face in school, we have that there is no interpreters in the hospitals. That's the biggest challenges that the deaf students face. Yeah.
Okay.
And also about their rights, maybe they face a lot of stigma during the training period. Yeah.
All right, that's interesting. Let's hear from you. Can you tell us about your own perspective from what you've seen?
Thank you for having me. My name is Cynthia Kennedy. From my perspective, the challenges that the deaf students tend to face while in the clinical areas, we have this problem of the public not having a know-how on the the Kenyan Sign Language. So there is that difficulty between the deaf students as the medical students communicating with the public. So there is that barrier.
All right. All right. I want to bring in Walter Juma. Walter's been here, who served in this organization as a sign language interpreter for news, and I believe you can speak authoritatively on this matter. Walter, do we have enough interpreters out there, or are we treating this access as more of a privilege and not a right? Walter.
Thank you so much, Victor, for this opportunity. I would like to give my input, and this is what I would like to say. It's a very great challenge because we have interpreters. Yes. Do we have enough interpreters? No. Why? Let us visit our health facilities. We lack sign language interpreters. If we have a patient who is a deaf and maybe would need to seek medical attention, it will be a challenge for this deaf person to access a complete health care because of lack of communication. We lack interpreters in many facilities. If you go to, for example, administrative offices like, for example, police stations, deaf people report cases, but they cannot be helped or heard out because of lack of sign language interpreters. So my response, Victor, is we do not have enough sign language interpreters. And maybe I would say it is because of mentality. Many people do say inclusivity or inclusion is not only is not for us as hearing people. It's only for the deaf, meaning we are doing favor to the deaf people, which should not be the right thing. We are supposed to do justice to them, and that is why we are calling for inclusivity. And therefore, my response is, we lack enough interpreters who can help these deaf people access services wherever they need them and at times that they need them. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Walter, for that. And I want to bring in the matter of policy and rights, because one of the things that has come up is about rights. You know, are we treating this access as more of a privilege? Or is it truly a right, which is what it's supposed to be? And I want to bring in Vincent Odhiambo here, as someone who works as an advocate for inclusion and inclusivity. Vincent, Kenya has a Persons with Disabilities Act, and the 2010 Constitution guarantees inclusivity. Why does access still fail on the ground, on the day-to-day? Why do we still have problems with access?
Yes, thank you very much. As has been mentioned, my name is Vincent. I'm very happy to share this experience with you guys today. So when it comes to policies about inclusion, in Africa, as we see, I think when it comes to drafting policies about inclusion, Kenya is very much ahead. But the problem comes when it comes to implementation. We draft policies, but then they sleep on the shelves. And the reason being, people fear the cost because it doesn't come alone. It comes with a cost. If I need access, I must have an interpreter. So if Victor says, oh, Vincent has to come with another person, so that's double cost. So that's why it tends to be a bit of a problem. So when the implementation comes, they feel it's not very inclusive because they feel it's about double cost. And the Constitution says includes for access to information, communication, workplace. But if you look at the data, how many organizations have implemented that? It's still few because of the cost. So its ability and cost come in hand, and this is what some people tend to fear. So we have a lot of barriers that come in, including attitudinal barriers. I can share an experience where when I go to my university, I was taken to my brother. So my brother at least knows sign language, so he could help me communicate. When you go to the university, the registration part, then it came another person, so, oh, this guy is deaf. So they called someone, so I'm wondering, why are you coming two people? because we only requested for one. So when they saw that I'm deaf, they said, no, this university, we don't admit deaf people. So this again comes to the denial of education. So my brother had to come and say, this is my brother, he's deaf. I'm just helping him in terms of interpretation for him to access. Because for them, they were thinking, oh, a deaf person cannot get access to this university, which is not good. So these are some of the barriers that we talk about, which the biggest one is the attitudinal barrier, which hinders us a lot. Thank you.
All right, all right. That's interesting. And just still with you, Vincent, who's dropping the ball? Is there a ministry or an organization that's dropping the ball? Why are we here today?
I might say, the problem comes with awareness creation. I think what Walter mentioned about people feeling, favoring persons with disability when it comes to inclusivity, I might say we do not need favors. We just need to be part of the implementation system. Just give us the opportunity, give us the access, because you can communicate. If you just give us an access to an interpreter, because a lot of people see us as a burden, which is not true. As I said before, it comes from the attitudinal perspective. They think, oh, this is a deaf person. If I give them a job, I must hire an interpreter. I think the deaf cannot do this, cannot do that, cannot do this, cannot do that. So, but I just think the deaf is not just, it's just the hearing. The problem is just the hearing. But the perspective of the people is think that we are a burden, which is not really true.
All right. Thank you for that. Let's bring in Joseph Barasa from LVCT Health. Now, Joseph, we've heard from some of the students here that there's a challenge when it comes to the training part of it. When the medical students are being trained, there's a challenge when it comes to interpreters and so on. But now, when you guys run your clinics at LVCT and as well as your other colleagues across the country, when deaf patients walk into the clinics, do they receive equal care? Or are they still sidelined? I mean, we've just heard from Vincent here that, even at the moment of procuring education, there's still, a bit of sidelining that's happening. Is that the same when it comes to healthcare?
Thank you very much, and thank you for giving me this time. What you have really much said is about access to the medical health in LVCT. Now, when it comes to the deaf people, now there's an experience that I encountered. What happened is, and also what I also do think, what my brother said is policy. Policy is a challenge. Now, when it comes to medical, whenever any deaf person wants to accesses that place, now there is a problem, but how do we get to solve it? But if we have stronger policies that might apply in college, such as training also sign language in the colleges, that can be a better method to solve that. And that being a beginning, like in many instances we have seen in Kenya, like people go to learn or take their studies in colleges. If we have inclusion, when you check on matters inclusion, it's not there in the colleges that we have right now. After the student finish their learning career, their learning moment, they don't get the knowledge of sign language. But if sign language is also included in these colleges, when we say about interpreters, this can also be a solution. And how can this be a solution? We even ask the deaf community, we also believe in ourselves. Okay? As said, outside there, we have many people who, give attitude to the deaf people. For example, if I give an example, even in the villages, in the rural areas, we receive attitude issues. Now, even when I go outside and I've received this, I also see the same happening. You see? So, what do I mean? What even is better is dependence on interpreter is not even the perfect solution. But even getting a deaf person or employing a deaf person in the hospitals itself, right, that will support when it comes to the help. Now, as people say, interpreters, no. That is also another way of sidelining deaf people and, turning them to something equated to beggars. But now, what do I think? We should also reduce at least the dependence of an interpreter by getting even a deaf person in the hospital. And when we employ a deaf person in the hospital, they can also provide the training inside the hospitals. That is the staffs, that is the volunteers, the matrons, the nurses. The deaf person will provide the assistance, not depending just on an interpreter alone. Because we also believe in ourselves. A deaf to deaf person, it's also easier. Communication becomes easier. Communication access becomes easier. But even when we check even in the organization, I'm deaf. But we have different partners. For example, we have in federations, right? We have different federations that provide these services of training, such as Kenya National Association of the Deaf. But now in the health sector, it's always direct. And it is always, to me, at young, direct. And that way, communication is easier. And even it's easier to meet even deaf people. And reaching this, it also makes sure that we have something which we call inclusivity. Inclusivity is the deaf people also being in these medical sectors. And when I try to rate, I can see it's poor at the moment. But now, when we go to the colleges, we have nurses being trained. We have services also being trained in the colleges. But now the question is, if we can be able to train the deaf, why an interpreter now? What we have seen, people, giving the perspective, it seems like deaf people are like fools, in quotes. But now, the deaf people are not fools. They are able to understand. If they're provided training very well, they can become very better. Now, on dependence of an interpreter alone, that is not a full assistance. But also, if we get a deaf person added to these medical sectors, it will be easier, even access for all other deaf.
All right.
And when you say interpreter, it comes also with the ethic. We need confidentiality. And this is a medical sector that needs confidentiality. So when we say an interpreter, that brings a third party and now brings poor services also. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, Joseph, because I was going to ask you on the matter of, sensitive information. For example, LVCT, we know what the organization does, and this is, it's in the realm of very sensitive, very private information. How do you then ensure that there is, as you say, ethics? How do you make sure that the privacy and the dignity of the patient is protected? Especially with a third party involved. I mean, you raise some really interesting points right there that I think we should all contribute to. I want to throw that particular point to the room before we proceed with the rest of the questioning. Joseph is raising an interesting perspective that perhaps interpreters by themselves are not the solution. That perhaps there's need for a much deeper and maybe much more wholesome solution. Let me hear from the room. Let me hear a few thoughts from the room. Let's start with you, sir. Mr. Appel, I believe. Karibu sana. Let's hear from you, sir. What do you think about this? And your institution actually trains interpreters and other personnel. What's your view on what Joseph has said?
It is a big challenge. Thank you, first of all. It's a big challenge, especially the part of privacy, because when a third party is involved, anything can go bad. But I believe now that there is technology coming in. When we involve technology, where now there can be one-on-one, you can see like right now there are a lot of AI being involved, where there is translation and therefore there can be one-on-one communication. We solve this in our institution first by having the KSL classes. Everybody, when you join, you learn Kenyan Sign Language, at least so that you are able to communicate with yourselves and also with the deaf persons.
Regardless of whatever course you're studying?
Yes. everyone...
It's a standard.
It's a standard.
Would you advocate for that standard to be made mandatory across the country?
I think that should be the thing, because now even in the bill that was assented by the president, all places should have Kenyan sign language interpreters, including churches, including places of worship, courts, and all that. So it should be a standard for all institutions.
All right. You brought up a matter around AI. That one we'll come to it later, because I believe there's also another angle to it that I would like to explore. But let me hear from the gentleman right next to Walter right there. What is your view on what Joseph is talking about, that perhaps interpreters by themselves are not the solution, that there's need to do more? Where do you stand on this?
Okay.
Please stand up.
I support what he said, because generally we know when an information comes from, okay, let's say it's me who is talking, then this information is given to a second party. Then it's transferred to the third party. There's likelihood of maybe a chunk of information might be missed out. Some information might be added. There's also another solution would be, let the health service provider, know how to communicate in sign language. That would be the best solution, not just having an interpreter. Because at times, you might get a deaf person. This deaf person maybe the receptive for this interpreter is not to that accuracy. So if I'm the health provider and I get it directly from this deaf person, I'm at a point, I'm able to help this deaf person in the right way.
All right. Okay.
And also...
yes, please. Yes.
Okay, the aspect of confidentiality, I believe whenever someone is learning to become an interpreter, there's code of ethics that they must adhere to. So with this code of ethics, I believe whatever information they receive in that room, they are going to keep confidentiality.
All right. But that means we're really trusting that they whatever the training they got on ethics, they hold on to it. It assumes a lot of faith in that. But I hear you. Thank you. That's a good point.
Welcome.
Thank you. Now, just let us digest that for a second. And I want to bring in Mr. Gashanja from the Kenya Society for Deaf Children. Mr. Gashanja, talk to me about this. We're talking about a school situation here. Are our schools producing deaf-empowered citizens, or are we still in what has been described as a charity mindset?
To a large extent, despite the challenges that we may be facing, we are trying somehow to produce students that are, self-reliant. One plain example is who we have here. These are people who have studied in this very republic. I like my brother when he said that when he started learning, it was oralism. There was no sign language in the 80s. And people are being trained to do carpentry courses. We have since graduated from those. I remember we used to have only 3 secondary schools, so progression was from primary to vocational courses. We have now gone to secondary. We have deaf people who have passed through university with masters, even a professor who is deaf. So on that bit, we are doing well. Yes, there may be challenges, but there are also things to celebrate. For example, we have a lot of advancement and exposure in the working field. And I want to go back to your question about, allow me to restate, to go back to the question of interpreters.
Yes.
We really do need interpreters, especially in educational institutions. I like what the TTI is doing in Nyangoma. And we have done that in every other institution. But I want you to figure out when they're learning their courses, and we have to send an engineer. What we need first are the qualifications for you to be able to teach. We need you to be able to impart the knowledge you have on the learner. So you may need an interpreter right then. So on that bit, they are necessary. In the public sector, they are very necessary. In the family, they are not necessary. You do not need an interpreter to talk to your brother. You need the whole family to be aware of how to speak in sign language. we need to train the parents, we need to train the siblings to use sign language. In the working place, I would say again, unless for reasonable accommodation and we employ a lot of deaf people, we need to teach the people themselves, like our brothers are doing, to learn sign language, to be able to speak in sign language to every deaf person. If we all knew sign language, I would practically say the deaf actually would be less of a group that we can call handicapped. But to your question, are we producing good, great deaf persons? Yes, to some extent we are, but we still have a way to go.
I see. Thank you for that. Let me also get another perspective from this. Madam, where do you stand on this? Are we producing, a country, a future? What is the future like when it comes to this? Is this hopeful? Are you confident that we're heading to the right direction as a country?
Thank you very much for having me. From KISE, that is a Kenya Institute of Special Education. We are seeing hope. There is a future, because among our core mandates is training. And in this training, we train teachers. The ones who have already been trained as teachers, we come to do something like capacity building to make them special needs education teachers. So in this way, as we give them this diploma in special needs education, which also includes the teaching of the deaf children, we are trying to build now a society from the basics that is already empowered to go up and advance in their studies. So in KISE, we train, as much as we train special needs education, we also have courses specifically where we train Kenyan Sign Language. Certificate courses open to all Kenyans to come and learn sign language. And we normally receive very big groups, churches, even armed forces, policemen, different people. They come to learn sign language. That is bridging that gap that Etiang was saying, the gap of confidentiality, where we want the professionals themselves to understand sign language. So that when you are going to a professional, you go there one-on-one. That is a very, very pertinent and valid point that we should really look into. So we encourage all maybe government agencies, parastatals, all groups to come in and learn sign language. We offer that in different modes. You can come in full-time, 3 months, we train you. We can come in part-time, like over school holidays as we take. We even have online classes. So we want to bridge, you don't want anybody to have an excuse that maybe I don't have time, I'm held up somewhere. So we want all to come in and learn. So through this mandate of hours of training, we are really trying to bridge this gap, which is communication. As all of them have said, the barrier that I've learned from here is basically communication, be it in families, in workplaces, everywhere. That is what we want to break through training.
All right, All right. Thank you for that. Yeah. Now, we did mention, you kind of alluded to it, Mr. Appel, technology is breaking barriers everywhere. We know this, we see it everywhere. But here's a question. Is Kenya tapping into this technological evolution, this breaking of barriers by technology? Are we tapping into it for the deaf? And to this, I want to ask Andrew Olubala, who's joining us from Signverse. Andrew, AI can now translate sign language into text in real time, as we've been told. Is Kenya embracing or ignoring these tools?
So thank you so much. My name is Andrew, and that's my sign name, and I'm from Signverse. So in the area of technology, technology is developing very quickly, which some people have accepted, and some people have adapted to it. But on the side of the deaf people, that is where we have the challenge, because sometimes technology sometimes can fail, especially where we try to develop AI to do the translation to sign. AI is not perfect. It's not 100%. So in Kenya, Have we accepted AI? That might be true, but in the area of the deaf community, we have not accepted that fully, which continues to improve. For example, as signbars, we are trying to develop AI which can sign, or to have a sign language interpreter. It can have translations, that is speech to sign. And also here we have a challenge as well, because like having an AI avatar, it cannot be 100%. So I think in future maybe we are going to accept it. Yes.
All right, but there's another concern. You know, our system still has a lot of focus on interpreters. We're training, I think, a lot more interpreters right now than ever before in our history, which is a great thing. But as happens in many cases of technological advancement or evolution, sometimes the technology can go so far ahead of us that to sometimes catch up, we may need to leapfrog, jump over existing adaptations and so on. Here's what I mean. Is there danger to the thousands of interpreters and people who want to actually go and study to be sign language interpreters? Is there danger to them and their livelihoods and their utility coming from AI? Does AI pose a danger to the thousands of people that want to study sign language or are already sign language interpreters?
Thank you so much for that question. So on that, this is what I want to say. Technology sometimes can fail, and it cannot replace some of the things and some of the jobs. You see, on what we are developing right now, that is something that AI is going to use technology, but it's not accessible everywhere. If a person wants an interpreter in person, that is, you cannot use AI. But for AI, sometimes can fail as well. For example, so maybe when you're using technology, maybe you want to use a phone, and then what do you need? There is a cost as well here. The same way, what my brother Vincent says, inclusion. Inclusion comes with a cost, and it goes hand in hand. So for AI, there is a cost for it to be able to work. So a person has to, if you want to use the app, for example, for translation, and maybe you don't have Wi-Fi, or maybe you don't have data bundles, or you don't have access to a device, a smartphone, then you're not going to use AI. Meaning, it's not going to fully replace sign language interpreters.
I see. That's interesting because cost still remains an interesting barrier in all this. And I want to bring in Mary. Mary, you deal with ICT at St. Joseph's, I believe. In connection to what he's talking about, what would you say are the digital innovations that could make education and also like workplaces become truly, truly inclusive for our deaf citizens?
This chance. Let me talk from perspective of an educator, first of all. If I need the services of an interpreter, but you find now the interpreter does not know the jargons that we use in our profession, it becomes a real challenge. So how I'm going to use technology is that if I'm going for a class session, I have to prepare my content in different forms so that to be absorbed by different students. you find that some of us trainers, we prepare contents, but we don't look at the person on the other end consuming the content. You prepare video, but you don't prepare captions. And you talk throughout, and there's no practical bit of it. This or not leaves our deaf students out. So as a trainer who embraces technology, I'd like to encourage all trainers, if you're preparing content, put in mind the person on the other end receiving your content, and that is when you have to include some of this technology. For example, if I'm going to prepare a video, let it be accompanied by captions. If I'm going to prepare a lesson, let it be visually attractive and all that, so that it's not only words. And looking at the trainers we have different learning styles. Not all of us are visuals, not all of us are kinesthetic. So I put all that into consideration. And then again, another thing is that if I'm going to prepare a content, I have to also accept feedback. If I accept feedback, then I'll consider my trainer needs to be sorted out. And I'll give thanks to what education has done now. The modularized bit of it, it has ensured that if you're going to train a student, they also accept other forms of examination. You know, initially when they are setting exams, the deaf student is, the only difference between the deaf paper and the other student is the color. But if at all they can bring these exams in different forms so that all students, whichever form, if they can accept the question either verbally and all that, and good enough, they've also included that 80% is practical on the first level of it. So you find that you're not only going to put off because you didn't understand the question. It's just like you're judging a fish that it cannot fly. But now the Ministry of Education has embraced other forms of assessing our students, of which that one is a big shout out to them. So it's only trainers to embrace all this technology to ensure that all our students, whichever form of disability you have, whichever learning style you have, you can consume the content that is being produced.
All right, thank you for that. Let's hear from the gentleman right behind you. What are your views on this? Would you please stand up?
Okay, thank you for the question. I am Otieno Nicholas, a medical student. And my view on the issue of technology and the deaf people is that when we produce content that is visually to them, that they can see it clearly, I think that one can really help them in terms of interpretation of the data that they are seeing from their own perspective. When you see something, is much more better than when you hear it. Then again, I think there should be more awareness on maybe content creation concerning the technology on the issue of the subject or the subject that are being taught to the deaf people. Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, I want to bring in a different perspective here. Dr. Inamdar, Dr. Shailendra Inamdar is joining us from MP Shah. He is an ENT specialist. Daktari, are hearing aids or cochlear implants accessible in Kenya in a good way, or are they still considered a privilege or a luxury to those who are able to afford them?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you for including me in discussion.
Karibu.
There is a basic difference between the hearing aids and the cochlear implants. Hearing aid basically amplify the sound. So somebody who is not able to hear, either mild, moderate or severe hearing loss, maybe up to 70 decibel, they amplify the sound, they can hear. There are different varieties depending on the features available in the hearing aids. Cochlear implant is an entirely different technology. You implant an electrode in the inner ear that bypasses the inner ear system and directly stimulates the auditory nerve. So although both are for improving the hearing, they are different technology. About the cost-wise, affordability is still an issue, because a semi-digital or digital hearing aid on an average will be more than almost 100,000. Other side is if you get a good hearing aid and use it nicely, it might last at least for a minimum 5 years or even longer than that. Cochlear implant, and average cochlear implant in Kenya costs the total cost comes to around 2.6, 2.7 millions.
Wow.
But that is I will say lifetime, because you are replacing the hearing, and hearing is the only sense that can be restored artificially. You cannot restore other senses if it is gone. So affordability still an issue. So that really the problem is that they are not manufactured locally. So they are imported, so that adds to, so government might consider reducing the taxes or importation costs. So that will be really helping the people, because these things are not for luxury. These are essential items that elevate the life, that increases the productivity at the individual, not only for his own good, but as a society as a whole.
Right, right. And while we still have you, talk to us a little bit about. Just hang on a second. So we've got people who are deaf from birth, and then we've got people that kind of contract a disease, or it happens in the process of living, and then suddenly they have to deal with this new reality. Talk to us about some of the causes of deafness, and perhaps what can be done to prevent that. And if anybody. I think this will ask you secondly, so I would compress the information. Talk to us about some of the causes, and especially the ones that can be avoided.
Yeah, I will start when the baby is in mother's womb. Very important. The mother should be having a proper vaccination, especially certain infections like rubella, mumps. When you contract during pregnancy, if the mother is not vaccinated properly, the child is going to have either congenital anomalies, or he is going to have high chances of having the congenital deafnesses, usually a severe or a total deafness. So that is something very preventable with simple vaccination. So that is one thing. Febrile illnesses or any epidemics is better to avoid contact with the society. Like recently there was certain virus outbreaks. So
right.
When you are expectant, better to avoid contact with people or avoid crowded places for a mother. During the neonatal period, when the child is born, if he develops a jaundice, you get a proper prompt medical help, because the chances of hearing loss, severe, profound, are high in babies.
For jaundice?
Neonatal jaundice, neonatal icterus,
Okay.
They are on the higher side. The incidence compared to a normal birth, and the baby who develops a neonatal jaundice, the incidence of hearing losses are on the higher side. So you get a proper phototherapy, proper pediatric intervention with prompt care. The babies who develop meningitis, who develop neonatal sepsis, they are also having higher chances. So that is for the small babies. Now, as the babies grow older, during their early phase, after even developing the speech, they have meningitis, they can also lose the speech. So they are developing the speech, and say at the age of 5-6 years, they develop good speech, and they stop hearing after having an attack of meningitis. So proper vaccination for the pediatric age group as per our national schedule. During adulthood, accidents, use of ototoxic drugs, that is important cause. Accidents can cause injury to the brain, they can cause injury to the temporal bone, which holds the inner ear. So the child develops, or the person develops language. After trauma to the inner ear, now he stops hearing. So for those people, either hearing aid or maybe a cochlear implant is the solution. Ototoxic drugs, something like quinine, chloroquine, used in a wrong way or in a wrong person, nephrotoxic drugs, those are. So that should be taken under medical supervision in a proper dosage.
Are those drugs still sold in our pharmacies?
Quinine is used in life-threatening falciparum infections.
Right.
Yeah, but when you use it in, you have to weigh whether it is going to benefit. Somebody get a falciparum malaria and not responding, now you still have to resort to use of it.
So
rarely used.
One moment. Guys out there in the country, Kenya is one of the countries that is flagged for a culture of self-medication. When we get sick, you just go to the pharmacist or the chemist down the road, and you tell them what to give you. Or sometimes you even just explain your symptoms. And so what you're saying is actually quite serious when you consider the culture that we have of self-medication. We can easily misuse these drugs.
Medicines, you will always find the label mentions to be used under medical supervision only.
Exactly.
Most of the time,
there's no medical supervision.
Yeah, but maybe out of 100 times, 1 or 2 times it might be proving very costly. So self-medication better to avoid, especially if you want your good health.
Right. Okay, I interrupted you. You were still explaining. Do you have something else to add?
Yeah, so those are the causes of the hearing. So as we advance now, we are in the middle ages, we are working, we are exposed to constant loud sounds, working in a factory, working in a construction site.
Matatus.
Matatus, of course, the music, loud music.
Right.
Constantly music, you start developing the high frequency hearing loss, also associated with noise in the ear. And that is very irritating noise, usually happens at the higher frequencies. So somebody working in an industry or a workplace where constant exposure to noise is there, you have to use good quality protection devices, ear muffs, and yearly audiological tests. Those are important. Those are actually mandatory in Western countries. Here we don't do it, but that should be done once in a year.
Right.
That is also a recommendation by the American Audiological Association. As we grow older, now there is presbyacusis due to dying or the degeneration of the inner ear neurons, the outer hair cells. Now we gradually develop hearing loss. So
what sort of ages are we talking about here?
Around 50, 60 is now there is a
50
natural
and above.
aging, natural aging process. Depends on again on the environment. If you are exposed to like environmental sounds, like somebody is living close to Thika Road, constantly he is exposed to. Now somebody is living in a quiet environment, he will be developing around 60, 70 years. So environmental factors play a role. One thing I forget, for babies, newborn babies in first world countries, we say, or Western countries, there is universal neonatal hearing screening program. So any baby is born, before the mother is discharged, they do the neonatal hearing screening. The instrument is called otoacoustic emissions. So you test for 500, 1000 and 2000 frequencies, 3 frequencies. There are only 2 test results, either pass or refer. So pass means the baby is hearing well. So first, second, third day of life, you know the baby is hearing well.
Right.
Now there is refer, so or indeterminate. So when there is refer, now you go for more confirmatory test. So when the baby is born, you know on the first, second day of life, the baby has a good hearing. So out of 1000, the incidence of hearing loss is around 1 to 3 per 1000 live births.
Oh, right.
So every year in Kenya, around 2 to 3000 children are having hearing losses, either severe, moderate, but some kind of hearing loss, and mostly it goes unnoticed because we don't do the test.
Right.
The baby becomes 3-4 years, he's not speaking. The relatives or the neighbors say, no, he's slightly slow, he'll speak late.
Or this is Africa, they'll blame the village
the
people.
diagnosis is done at the age of 5-6 years already. The age for cochlear implant from 0 to 5 years, it's already passed. So neonatal hearing screening is an important early intervention. So at MPSHA we do it for all hospital births.
Right.
It's very cost effective and it's very easy. You just put a probe in the ear, in 1 minute you get the test results.
I see. All right, and a quick question, another question. For those of us here who are watching and perhaps you're experiencing varying levels of hearing problems or hearing loss, can you give us a quick toolkit of what can alert us to hearing loss in ourselves? Some of us are walking around with, and I'll tell you this because I've experienced this, there's a lot of people that are walking around with that ringing sound in their ear, and it's permanently there, it's always there. And you kind of just adapt, you kind of just get used to it, you just walk along your life. I mean, you walk around with that in your ear, and you kind of just tune it out. But I remember the last time we had you, you mentioned that is actually a symptom of hearing loss. Can you help us with a short toolkit of for people to use to kind of see whether they're having hearing problems or not, and whether it's something you can do or fix?
Yeah, a simple wax can cause it actually. A wax impaction in the ear can make you feel you are hearing that noise. A clinical examination or simple examination with a torch will also, there is wax, you remove it, you are okay.
Okay.
Now, an ENT examination will show the eardrum is okay or not. You have some other issues with the external ear, middle ear. Mm-hmm. Inner ear issues, usually the noise in the ear mostly relates to the inner ear issues, and an audiological test will be helpful. So that is done by the audiologists.
Excellent.
Simple tool. Actually, there is an app developed by WU. You can download from Google Play to check your hearing. A simple clinical screening app that is for free.
Oh, is that so? Okay, all right. So you heard it from the good doctor. This is something we all need to pay attention to. If you're walking around with a ringing sensation, or if you're finding it hard to hear some things when previously it wasn't so, this is clearly something that we need to look after. Now, I want us to shift gears. I want to talk about accountability. I want us to talk about things that we can do to fix the situation that we've got in this country as far as inclusion is concerned. And I want to bring in Madam Josephine Asker from FedWen. Madam Josephine, from where you sit, if you had to pick one or two policy gaps that must be fixed this year, not in 5 years, not in 10 years, not in some lofty SDG type of situation, this year, if you have to pick one of those things or two of those things, what would that policy gap be, Madam Josephine?
Okay. If I could be given this opportunity, I would want the president to ratify the Act for Disability. Because, as just said by Vincent, we have very good policies, but they're not implemented. The policies, even in the Act of 2025 of the Disability Act, it needs now to work. If it will be working, then everything will move smoothly. But now the problem in Kenya that we have today is that we need to have a political goodwill. If you don't have a political goodwill, things will not move. So we truly need also the political goodwill for everything to move. Now, and that even, that we can say that we can now enjoy as citizens of the country. Now, if we see, the problem is, like, our disability is hidden. For example, I'm deaf. I'm Josephine Asker, I'm deaf. By the time I walk in here, people who don't know me will not know that I'm deaf. Maybe someone who's deaf, someone who's blind, you're able to see just that this person is blind. If you see someone in a wheelchair, you're able to discover the disability, and you know that this person needs a ramp. But for my disability, it is hidden. It's not able for you to recognize by just looking at me. So getting accessibility is very hard. So the policies in the Constitution, okay, the Constitution has had different rules and policies that has been inside there from way back. But now we need to enforce and start working. But also at the same time, it comes with a cost. But what does our country say? That we don't have that ability, that financial capability of doing that. Now, we always say that the government is broke. But now the government also needs to support us for things to work, and needs to provide resources for things to move, for things to be well. Sign language to also be taught in colleges. That is a cost, right? Kenya Police College in Nyeri, they also train, whenever they train the sign language in the college, it will come with a cost. The cost is there. The policies are there also. But now the implementation is the problem. There is a need to fast track this implementation and to stop also, to stop talking and start acting. And that is how things will move. Thank you.
All right, that's great, that's great. And from what you're saying, Madam Asker, you can clearly see around the room, people are appreciating what you're saying. Mr. Gashanja was clapping, and our representatives, across the room are reacting and responding to this. And I think I want to actually throw this question to everyone in this room. We are, I believe we are in a very good place to contribute recommendations, ideas, and things that can actually make the situation better. I promise you, next year, by God's grace, and if God gives us health and allows us a platform like this, by next year, I promise you, we shall talk about this very matter next September. So now, my challenge to all of you in this room is that I want us to shift gears away from highlighting what the problem is, because we have seen where the problem is. We live with these realities of where the problems are. Can we recommend some solutions? Assuming, for example, that the President of Kenya is watching this program, and he does watch this program, I must say. assuming that we get a chance to speak to the powers that be, the people that can actually institute some of those policy changes you're talking about, Madam Asker, what would you say? What is the one thing or two things that you would change that would transform the situation for over 600,000 citizens of Kenya who are deaf for the better? What is that one thing? Now, I want us to go around the room. Feel free, think about it, cook up something, and let us get some answers that can be able to take this conversation to the next level. But in the meantime, as I give you an opportunity to come up with that, I want to appreciate some people who are sending in their feedback, who are watching us. We have Kimzi Mugishuaini. I hope I'm saying that name properly. You're tuned in from Mombasa. Thank you so much. We have Backstone Menjo. You're watching from Nandi County. Thank you, Backstone. We have Aaron Ruto watching from Bungoma County. Thank you. Dennis Oyola, a student at St. Joseph's. He's very, very happy to see some of his seniors here. Thank you, Dennis Oyola. He says he's happy to see his teacher here. Linus Munene is watching from Machakos TTC very keenly. Thank you, Linus. Nkadziri Id, you're saying awesome conversation and work on sign language interpretation is commendable. So Nkadziri is congratulating all of you who are working in this sector. Thank you for that. We also have Jacqueline Kathambi Kaburia. You say, great to hear matters of inclusion, especially for the deaf persons in this Deaf Awareness Month. Thank you, Jacqueline. We also have George Benedict, of course, watching from Maranda in Bondo in Siaya County. All right. We have Dennis Oyola. He's saying, Salimia Waju. I don't know who Waju is in this building, but Dennis Oyola says Salimia Waju. And Eli Awar, watching from Nyangoma, is very happy for this kind of engagement. Thank you, Eli Awar. But Eli Awar says, AI does not replace, but merely supplements. See, that's some of the things you're talking about, my friend from Signverse. We have somebody else. Okay, let's go around the room. Let's go around the room. Tracy Tessie says, big up to Cynthia Kennedy. Ellie Savatia says, well done, Andrew, from Signverse. And Abigail Seela says, thank you, Andrew, for that AI insight. And from the madam from St. Joseph's as well. Finally, Obed Avinda from Kibabii University is just so happy to participate in this conversation. So let's go around the room. What solutions would you propose? Let's start with you, Mr. Gashanja. From where you sit at the society, at the organization where you work, what are the two things, if you have more, share them, but what are the two things that you would like to see change that will transform where we are to where we need to be?
I would say, if I was sitting next to the president, I would tell him three things. Mambo ni matatu.
Mambo ni matatu.
First one, neonatal assessment and confirmation of hearing loss, so that we can do interventions from an early stage. The second one, empowerment of the family and the workplace. Train the parents, train the siblings, train the colleagues where this deaf person can work, so that we have more direct inclusion of the deaf person. Third one, enhanced support for education of the deaf. We need better capitation than what is currently going because of the low enrollment status in our schools. If you give capitation to a school based on each child, and a school has 10,000 learners, those are big millions. But if there are only 100, it's paltry. So we need a reconfiguration of the model of supporting and financing education for learners who are deaf. Thank you.
All right, all right. The natural thing is to move to the person next to you, Madam Martha, but I want to jump the queue a bit. I want to bring in Andrew once again from Signverse. Andrew, what are your recommendations? What would you recommend to change? If you're speaking to the president right now, what would you say?
So if I got an opportunity to sit with the president right now, what I would want to change is, first of all, collaboration. What I would say is the government needs to work with deaf people. Whenever they have something, whenever they have a new innovation, they need to work with the deaf people, because there is so much technology innovations. There are so many things that are being innovated, but sometimes deaf people are left behind. Another thing I would say is that partnership for funding. What I would say is the government needs to fund more innovations which support the deaf community. Like, for example, what we do at SIGNET. We are working with different private sectors, and also the government is supporting. Right now, we are working with Google to continue expanding our data set as we collect it, because we are targeting to collect 20,000 signs, which we are going to use these signs to train AI. So that's all from my side. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Andrew, for that. Next, I want to hear from you, Mr. Onjala. From where you sit, what is a recommendation that you would make if you're speaking to the president right now?
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Andrew Onjala. The recommendation that I could make today is that, first of all, they should make communication skills, basically on Kenyan Sign Language, to be common unit in all the universities in Kenya, so that, that one should have even basic knowledge on what Kenyan Sign Language is, so that they can able to communicate effectively to the people living with disabilities. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Our good doctor from MP Shah, Dr. Inamdar, what are some of the recommendations you would make if you're speaking to the senior most policy person or even the president himself? What would you tell him?
Thank you. Sir has already covered the first, because neonatal hearing screening, that is the single most thing that can change the entire generation. So 3,000 people everywhere, if you are adding to the person who are not hearing and they are now in hearing group, that changes the entire society. That is one thing. And secondly, definitely, if possible, they should consider abolishing the tax or at least reducing significantly, because as I have said, they are not the atoms of luxury. They are the essential aids. So hearing aids and cochlear implants, that will be made cheaper and more affordable. So more people can use it and get a better quality of life.
All right. Thank you for that. Mr. Appel, from where you sit, where would you want this country to go? What recommendations do you have?
Number one, why should assistive devices be very expensive in the first place? I have an instance like in our institution where we were funded with hearing aids, but we can't get their batteries because one particular time they have to be imported and it takes a long time to reach here. Can we even have our industry here that can do them? If phones can be done here, maybe somebody can even do the hearing aid, manufacture batteries here so that we get them at very low cost. And number two, if I was with the president today, I'll ask him to fund assistive devices in our institutions to ensure, like now there's internet going on through. You will agree with me that persons with hearing impairment right now, the major means of communication is using video through video chats. And if they don't have that in their areas or in their places where they stay, it will be a problem. Suppose in this room, lights goes off. For us, we'll be able to communicate because somebody will hear me communicate. But for them, it means they'll be in the darkness. But then there are innovations where people are supposed to be able to communicate even if there was darkness. I remember last year we had an innovation in our institution where we were trying to innovate on jackets or vests that they can even use at night, because we integrate them in their rooms where they stay, the hearing and the hearing impaired. Hearing are able to communicate in those rooms at night when they are blackout, but for them, there must be light, and you know it interferes. So such innovations will be very important. We will also encourage that we have innovation like now the one that has been talked about, that if at all there are mechanisms that can improve their communication, then let it be funded even by the government so that they come to work.
All right, thank you for that. Next, we have back to you, Madam Aska. You did make a really wonderful recommendation. I'd like to give you an opportunity to say a little bit more. If you're speaking to the President right now, what else would you have him do, or what else would you like to change so that next year we have a different kind of show than the one we have this year?
Okay, so if I get the opportunity to meet our Honorable Mr. President, I'll pick just a few things to say. I'll ask the President to establish a policy. By the time a mother or an expectant mother gives birth, let this child learn sign language. Why do I say that? For a deaf child who is growing, whenever they have a language, they acquire the language before even getting to the school. Most times, deaf children go to school late because they don't have a language. By the time they go to school, they don't have a language. Even the teacher, you find the teacher does not know that language very well. Now, it makes things to delay, and even education is not achieved well. There's delay. Now, when we enter even any school for the deaf, from ECD to high school level, everyone should be signing. If no one is signing, or that person who is not signing, they should be fired. That is one. Second, all medical or all the police institution, all institutions that we have. For example, if a woman goes to a hospital and wants to give birth and they're not able to communicate, now you bring an interpreter, then I'm like afraid. Now this is a third party. A deaf person has the right to privacy. The same way I have the right with another person. Is there any difference between us? Now, we're dreaming also for that day. And again, please talk to us. Any policy that you need to come up with, consult. We as persons with disability, we have different disabilities. We have special needs and they differ. What a blind person needs is not the same person that a deaf person needs. What a person in a wheelchair is not the same need with the other disability. So, what do I mean? We should be inclusive. Even in the boards, we should discuss before they say that this is done. Now, you bring something which is done, you bring it unto us, then you expect us to do something. No. Thank you very much.
All right, we appreciate that. Thank you for that feedback. Next, I want to hear from you. As an ICT expert, what recommendations would you have that would totally change how things are?
First of all, I'd send it to all Kenyans. You give yourself a challenge. 5 signs a day. Learn 5 signs a day, and all of us will be KSL, conversant. Now that KSL is the 3rd official language in Kenya, like we always do challenges and then it goes viral, then we can also make KSL challenges and make it go viral. That will make everybody at least be very conversant with the challenges. And then
5 signs a day.
5 signs a day.
All right.
Each and every day. And then again, another thing as an educator, if you're going to prepare contents, that just ensure that your content covers all types of learners and whichever learning style. That one will ensure that your content is delivered to the targeted audience. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Speaking of that, I want to, as we proceed, I want to put out a challenge to our sign language interpreters, the ones in the room. By the way, ladies and gentlemen who are watching us tonight, there's 3 people, actually 4 people, that are in the room right now that are actively signing, not just for our guests, but for you at home. The voices that you're hearing every time Madam Aska speaks and so on, those people are in the studio right now. And I want to challenge you, if you can, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to challenge you, the four of you, Catherine and the two gentlemen and a dear lady tonight. I want to challenge you based on what she's saying. Come up with something that you can show us how to sign a very simple sentence that is actually creative and inclusive. Show us how to sign a commitment to upholding inclusion for the deaf of this country. All right? Figure that out and you'll teach us that. Different phrases, just simple. Something simple, all right? I'm putting you on the spot, but please think about that. You guys are also the stars of the evening, so I thank you. Now, as we do that, I want to hear from somebody from this side. I want to hear from Joseph. Joseph, from where you sit, what are some of the recommendations you would have that would be able to change things, speaking to the president or any other person who's senior enough to make things happen?
Yes, thank you. One thing that I would want to say is, first of all, I'll appreciate the president for ratifying the Disability Act just recently that he did. Now, if I get the opportunity to meet the president, I'll say, mambo ni matatu. One, make sure that the private sectors and the public sectors to implement the 5% rule on employability. All right? 5%. Why am I saying this? Many organizations or many institutions, they employ many persons who have disability, that is maybe, let's say, albinism and what, but they forget the deaf people. So we need to also ask, in this communication, how do they channel communication in the medias? Is there any deaf person? Is there any video that talks also to a deaf person? No. So we should also include the deaf persons. In the Constitution, it says 5%, right? We must make sure that it has been implemented well. Now, secondly, same on the matter of education and awareness. I'll tell Mr. President to make sure that everyone is aware, that everyone should understand that deaf people can work the same way any other person can do. Not assuming that deaf people are sick in their heads. Do not assume. All right? So also deaf people can do anything. All right? Now, another thing that I'll pass to Mr. President on Mambo ni Matatu is the social inclusion starts from parents at home. At home, the parents themselves. You know, many parents, I'll tell Mr. President to ensure that many parents, even during the meetings, the parents, first of all, should be given that mandate for learning first. We cannot grow if our parents are poor in sign language. And in Kiswahili, what do we say? Asiyefunzwa na mamae, atafunzwa na nani? Na ulimwengu. So that's what is the meaning. It starts from the parents. It cannot start from any other place. That's all for me. Thank you.
Oh, great, great. That's great. That's great. Thank you for that. I want to shift to this other side of the room before we come to you, Madam. Oh, actually, Madam, you seem fired up. You seem ready. Go ahead, please. The stage is yours.
Okay, thank you.
The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. As you know, KISE is a government institution, and I can hear all that is being aired here. It is a gap that has been noticed by the institution, and most of it is being covered. We start with the area of assistive devices. As the doctor said, they are quite costly, which is very true. And through that gap, the institute is building a factory, actually the only one in this part of Africa that is going to manufacture and repair assistive devices and learning resources, which is either going to be given out free or at a very affordable cost. So I want to invite all of you, at the end of this year, we'll come to launch that factory. It is being fed by, the machines are being installed right now, and we are going to have assistive devices and learning resources affordable to all of them, to all our people with disabilities.
You know what, Madam?
Yes.
If you launch it,
yes,
we will come.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. And on the other issue of parental empowerment, that also has been a brainchild to us. You know, you look at the parent, we normally forget the parents. A parent with a child with disability, what they are going through, psychosocial, you know, the stigma and all that is around them. Some of them, maybe the children have severe disabilities that they cannot go anywhere. They have to carry the child, so they're not able to do anything for themselves. So we have that, again, another parental empowerment center. Actually, that one is being launched even at the end of this month, in the coming month, where we'll be training parents, giving them skills, counseling and all that, so that they can be empowered as they also raise their children with disabilities. My third and last point on this to the President. Yes.
That facility,
yes,
the one for training parents,
yes.
How much would it cost? I mean, it seems like something that will be interesting to the people.
It is going to be actually almost free.
Right.
Like right now, we have so many activities for parents. We have those parents whose kids are under medication, a constant medication. We have a health center where, together with the National Council for Persons with Disabilities, you only come with the disability card and you're given all the drugs free. You are given, assessment is almost free. When you have the SHA, the SHA, for those who have not registered with SHA, I encourage them to register, because when you come to our health facility, you use SHA, you use the National Council of Persons with Disability Certificate, and you get the services free. And also, as we were saying, the empowerment will also be free for the parents to come in and learn various skills, and the counseling part, you know, that group support, which is very crucial to our parents.
All right.
And another thing that none of us has mentioned, that is also, which we'll also need, maybe the government and also partners to support, is what is called assessment. Imagine a child in Turkana or in Wajir. A parent has a child, does not even know what to do with this child. So we need centers where these children can be assessed, and then disabilities or special needs identified earlier. So even with that, even the institutes saw that gap. We normally move to different far-flung areas. Like last weekend, we were in West Pokot. We have a big truck where we go and meet all people in the villages. They come in, then the special needs are identified, and intervention measures are carried out at an early age. As all of us know, even the doctor knows, early intervention is key in each and everything as matters special needs and disabilities. Yes, those were my burning points that I really wanted to ensure that, to tell the general public that at least the government is doing something. We are really thinking about people with disabilities and really working hard to support them.
All right, thank you. Walter, I'm coming to you right now. It's a bit of an ambush, but what are your recommendations for what you would like to see changing?
Thank you so much, Victor. First, I would like to, when I meet the president.
Yes, when you meet. I like this man's faith. He says when, not if, when.
When I meet the president in person, first and foremost, I will appreciate the president for all the work he has done for disability mainstreaming. Number two, let us all remember that inclusion benefits everyone, not only the deaf people. And that brings me to a recommendation that says, Mr. President would make all institutions from ECD, primary, secondary, colleges and university to normalize sign language learning in all these sectors. We are also doing this as St. Joseph's Technical Institute for the Deaf. Actually, even yearly when we do deaf awareness, we usually offer free sign language courses, lessons, let me say, to the communities, free or of charge. And this empowers our communities, and it even makes them
ni mojawapo wa